Voices in the vent. The house greeted me with silence. It was an old, decaying building on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by cracked asphalt and snow-covered hills. I had been looking for a cheap place to live, and this one seemed perfect. Spacious, quiet, suspiciously inexpensive. The realtor, an elderly woman with nervous eyes, barely stayed 10 minutes. She quickly showed me around, signed the paperwork, and, wishing me luck, rushed out as if she couldn't wait to leave. That first night, I realized something was wrong with the house. I couldn't sleep. The wooden walls creaked. The wind whispered through empty rooms. But the worst part was the voices. A muffled whisper drifted from the ventilation shafts. "Can you hear us? Can you hear us?" I froze, listening. Maybe it was a neighbor, but the closest houses were far away. I convinced myself it was just the wind playing tricks with the old pipes. But the next night, the voice returned, and this time, it said my name. They are still here. Each night, the whispering became clearer. Sometimes it came during the day, but mostly at night, when I turned off the lights. I checked the ventilation grates. Nothing but dust and darkness. But when I ran my fingers inside the metal duct, I felt something... scratches, as if someone had been clawing their way out. Desperate for answers, I visited the city archives, hoping to learn the house's history. What I found froze my blood. This house had belonged to a religious cult. They called themselves the Heralds of Silence. Their leader, Marcus Vincent, believed that the human voice was a chain binding the soul to the material world. To reach enlightenment, one had to become truly silent. His followers cut out their own tongues. They meditated in absolute quiet, and new initiates were locked in the basement for weeks, left in the dark until their souls were freed. Years ago, neighbors noticed the house had become eerily empty. When the police finally entered, they found nothing, except for blood in the ventilation ducts. No one leaves. I returned home late that evening, determined to leave. But as soon as I stepped inside, the air turned thick and heavy. "Don't leave us." The voices were no longer whispering. They were weeping, begging. The lights flickered. In the hallway mirror, I saw something tall, eyeless, mouthless. I froze. The whispering swelled into a chorus of cries, filling the house, the walls, my head. I had to do something. I remembered the newspaper articles. The cult members hadn't left. Something was keeping them here. Something stronger than death. I ran to the basement. In the farthest corner, buried beneath dust and broken furniture, stood an old wooden cabinet. I opened it and stopped breathing. Inside were cassette tapes, dozens of them, their yellowed labels covered in names. I grabbed one and shoved it into a dusty cassette player. For a moment, there was nothing. Then, crying. Soft at first, then rising into a full, desperate wail. And then, a scream, a terrible broken scream of pure horror. The voices in the vents screamed with it. The walls trembled. I clamped my hands over my ears, but it didn't help. And in that moment, I understood. They never wanted to die. They were asking for help. The final ritual, I grabbed all the tapes and ran outside. The wind howled through the trees, whipping around me like unseen hands. I threw the tapes into a pile and set them on fire. The film crackled, curling into embers. The voices in the house howled a terrible dying wail. I stood there, fists clenched, watching as the past burned away to ash. And then, silence. The house remains. The next morning I packed my things, but as I stepped out the door, something stopped me. I realized I didn't want to leave. The house no longer felt cold. The shadows were gone. Sometimes late at night, I think I can still hear a whisper in the vents. But now, it sounds grateful, and I'm no longer afraid.